Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be our initial conceptual overview of Azure ExpressRoute. We have a lot of ground to cover in this section, and this initial lesson is going to act as a preview for a number of other topics that we are going to expand in more detail later on in this section. But as is tradition, we're going to start off with the big picture of a lot of different concepts for now. In this lesson, we will start off with the big picture of what exactly is ExpressRoute, from which we will go through an example ExpressRoute topology and break down the primary components of it. Next, we will discuss how encryption works on ExpressRoute, discuss the large number of different configuration options available with our ExpressRoute implementation, and then finish up with an overview of the network gateway SKUs associated with an ExpressRoute network gateway directly attached to a virtual network. Jumping on into it, starting with the big picture view, what exactly is ExpressRoute, especially when compared to our other hybrid connections we just talked about a little bit earlier. Simply put, compared to the other hybrid connectivity options, ExpressRoute is a private connection to Microsoft Cloud that does not go over the public internet. Rather, it is a private connection directly into Microsoft Cloud that you do not have to share with anyone else. Now, notice I said it is a private connection to Microsoft Cloud, not to a virtual network, which is going to be a key difference. Other relevant points is that it is a layer 3 connection that operates over Border Gateway Protocol, or again BGP for short, and most connectivity models involve partnering with a connectivity provider, which will help facilitate the connection between your on-premises network and Microsoft's cloud, and again, we'll talk more about that in detail later on. And another very key point is that we're not talking about just connecting virtual networks directly to your on-premises location. Virtual networks are one of multiple scenarios for working with ExpressRoute. ExpressRoute has a number of key benefits compared to our other hybrid connectivity options, the biggest of which is, again, it is a private connection to Microsoft services that does not operate over the public internet. One key difference is that, as mentioned above, this is a private connection not just to an Azure virtual network, but to other Azure managed services and also Microsoft 365 services as well. Virtual networks is one of multiple connection scenarios, but it is not the only one. Other benefits include the nature of the private connection in that it is reliable and fast. It comes with built-in redundancy by default, in which you have a full-time active connection to Microsoft Cloud, and a number of high-speed options are available up to a blistering 100 gigabits per second. And then our final benefit is that it has some broader connectivity options compared to our other VPN options, depending on the SKU you're working with. However, the locations you can connect to are a good bit wider depending on your exact billing model. Next, let's talk about an example ExpressRoute topology and break down the main components that we are working with. In your typical ExpressRoute model, you have your own on-premises network, whether it is in a data center or a co-location facility, that works with a partner provider that facilitates a connection directly into Microsoft's Edge, which goes directly into Microsoft's private global backbone. Let's take a look at some of the key components here we're going to expand in later lessons. The first of which is our partner Edge, which is simply defined as the service provider routers that connect your network directly into Microsoft's network. These are your connectivity partners' routers or network equipment that initiates a connection with Microsoft's backbone, and for the most part, they handle the cross connects between both of them. Our next component is the Microsoft Edge, which is the Microsoft-owned edge routers on Microsoft's side of the ExpressRoute circuit. And these Microsoft's edge routers are essentially the hopping off point going from the public internet directly onto Microsoft's private backbone. And then between the partner edge routers and Microsoft's edge routers, we have our ExpressRoute circuit in the middle. In the connectivity partner models, these are handled by the partner. However, these are typically two separate connections from the partner edge to the Microsoft edge that provides our active redundancy. And finally, for now, note this entire model uses BGP for dynamic routing, in which it will able to automatically discover and apply new routes. Again, this is a quick initial introduction. We're going to expand on some of these different connection variations later. Next, let's talk about how encryption works on ExpressRoute and some of the differences compared to our VPN options earlier. Overall, when discussing encryption on ExpressRoute, by default, an ExpressRoute connection is private. However, it is not encrypted, again by default. This is similar to our models when working with network peering, VNet to VNet, in which it is a private connection, not over the public internet, but that connection is not encrypted, which is the same with ExpressRoute as well, which, to be honest, can sound a little bit scary. However, with that in mind, you do have the option of implementing a couple different encryption options on top of your, by default, unencrypted private ExpressRoute connection, one of which is known as MACsec, which is a layer 2. Think of it as a MAC address encryption. And this specific encryption model is usable only with ExpressRoute Direct, and we're going to talk more about that in the next lesson. The other more common encryption option that is more widely available is that of IPsec. Yes, it is the same IPsec encryption protocol when working with VPN connections. IPsec is a layer 3 end-to-end encryption, and from which you can establish a separate VPN encrypted tunnel over your ExpressRoute circuit to different Microsoft services. So again, quick summary, ExpressRoute is not encrypted by default. However, you can apply additional encryption based on your connectivity model, whether it is a MACsec layer 2 encryption using ExpressRoute Direct or using IPsec, which is essentially a VPN tunnel over your existing ExpressRoute circuit. Next, let's move into a preview of the different configuration options available with ExpressRoute, and to be honest, there's quite a few different layers to work through. Our first configuration option is the billing model for the ExpressRoute circuit itself, which essentially comes down to monthly pricing for data ingest. Of that, our two billing models is unlimited, in which all inbound and outbound data to your Azure Virtual Network is completely free. And the other one is metered, in which inbound data is free, however, outbound or egress data is charged. This is more in line with your typical Azure data pricing, in which inbound data is free and outbound data is charged as well. Our next configuration option we're going to break down in more detail in the next slide is that of our network gateway SKUs. These are the ExpressRoute virtual network gateways that is directly attached to our virtual network. Again, more on that one in the next slide, but be aware of it now. Our next layer of different configurations is that of the different connectivity models, or in other words, how we connect our on-premises network to Microsoft. And then finally, we have variations in our service models, which are the geographical range of connectivity, or in other words, the regional restrictions of our ExpressRoute circuit to either work or not work with multiple regions. And as I mentioned, this is a bit of a preview. Specifically, we are going to break down connectivity models and service models in more details in the next lesson. But again, you should be aware of the variety or layers of different configuration options now. Last item I want to talk about in this initial conceptual overview is that of the network gateway SKUs available with a virtual network connection when using ExpressRoute. For ExpressRoute network gateways, we have essentially 3 different SKUs that we are focusing on, which you can see on the left side of standard, high performance, and ultra performance. And for the most part, the main differences between the different SKUs is essentially you get more stuff, more connections, more throughput, such as 1, 2, or 10 gigabits per second, more packets, more virtual machines, just more stuff. 2 things I wanted to focus on for the moment, though, is that for our highest tier SKU, in other words, the ultra performance, notice underneath our fast path column near the right side, we can see that our ultra performance queue enables fast path, whereas the other 2 do not. We'll talk more about fast path in a later lesson. So again, another bit of a preview for now. Also notice that each of our 3 SKUs has an equivalent SKU of ERGW in a number in AZ. That acronym is short for ExpressRoute Gateway 1, 2, or 3 AZ. These AZ SKUs are the exact same as our standard high performance and ultra performance SKUs, with the main difference in that these are the zone redundant version of each of those 3 SKUs. So again, brief summary, we have essentially 3 different gateway SKUs, each with a different availability zone redundant option available as well. With that, that's going to wrap up this initial overview of the high-level concepts of working with Azure ExpressRoute. We have a lot more ground to cover. However, let's quickly review the main key takeaways from this lesson before we move on. We started off with the big picture overview of what exactly is ExpressRoute, in which we learned that it is a private, reliable, high-speed connection directly into the Microsoft Cloud Network, which includes Azure resources and Microsoft 365 as well. We also talked about encryption, in which ExpressRoute is not encrypted by default, even though it is private. However, you do have additional Layer 2 and Layer 3 encryption options available. We also previewed the multiple layers of configuration options available on ExpressRoute, which include billing models, which specifically refer to how outbound data is charged, our gateway SKUs, the multiple connectivity models, and the multiple service models. And then we took an additional look at the network gateway SKUs available, in which we learned there are 3 primary SKUs, of which our premium SKU has an additional perk of FastPath, again, more on that later, and each of those SKUs has a zone redundant variation available as well. That's going to go ahead and wrap up this initial conceptual overview. Let's go ahead and move on to our next lesson.